So let me share my screen. So see it?
Yep, we can see it. Yep.
Okay, great. So welcome everybody. Thank you for being here, and thank you to British Council for this invitation. So this is the third session in assessment, and today we're going to talk about an alternative assessment tool, which is the portfolio. And in particular, we're going to see how to use the portfolios to improve your students' writing skills. Well, the reason why I opted for the writing skills and not another type of skill is because I remember from my early years when I used to be a student of English myself, and I remember that I struggled with writing in general because I didn't really understand the comments I was given; they were too long, or I was given a raw grade, which was impossible, made it impossible for me to succeed and get a high score even in exams, which is very important here in Greece. So now I would like to know how did writing make you feel? So if you please could contribute to the chat box and write A or B. Can you relate to the girl in the first picture or in the second picture, the boy? Oh, I can see many. I can see lots of everything, a bit of everything. Oh, that's nice. That's super wow. Many A's also, apart from B's. Very interesting. So, me myself, as you can imagine, I struggled a lot and I felt panicked and frustrated. So, I can totally relate to the person in picture B. I like the fact that you can relate to also the girl that you felt relaxed. This is great. But the thing is that me having felt that myself, I started realizing that maybe my students also feel less joy and more fear when they are invited to write something, anything. It could be letters, it could be reports, a review, and I didn't want to keep going with that, let's say. So I started looking for other ways to improve their confidence in writing, their critical skills, and let's find out how. An outline of the presentation, what we're going to look at today. So I'm going to present you my class and to give you some advice on how to conduct a needs analysis and how to present results. I'm going to name a few very briefly, name some benefits of the portfolio and education in general. Then we'll move on into indicative steps of implementing the portfolio in class. You are free, of course, to adapt it and adjust it, make any changes you need in order to fit it in your context. And finally, because not everything is plain sailing, we need to acknowledge some outcomes and difficulties there might be in using the portfolio. So the story relates to a class in a private school. It only had 4 students, 2 boys and 2 girls. We're talking about teenagers, so they're just starting to develop their critical thinking skills, and they need to be given the chance to make decisions. These students were very willing to learn English, but their main goal was to succeed in the B1 exams, Cambridge exams, the PET exams. So they are considered to be taught at a B1 level according to the CFR. The course book that we used was an ordinary course book that is available on market here in Greece, and unfortunately, it only presented the writing skill using an approach, a very traditional approach, as you can see, because it was presentation, practice, production. And that's why for the first 45-minute lesson, I decided to make the learners familiarized with the Cambridge 4 writing criteria for the PET exams, which was our original goal. So here you can see also I've got the link. You can click on the link later and you'll find the writing booklet by Cambridge Assessment. And what I did was actually present this picture to my students, and we had a look at these criteria, the 4 criteria, so that we know what our goals are, what we need to achieve. I know that there might be some language that students that is difficult for students to understand, but the thing was that if you are there and explain it to them in paraphrasing, in very simple words, students can really pick up what you mean. It is not difficult for them anymore as long as you explain it in a simple way. So this is a hypothetical, let's say, page of our course book. Let's say we've got an article. Okay, so it might be a report, also a review, a letter, whatever. And students were originally given a topic immediately. They were given a topic, a model writing, which is usually considered to be perfect for students. And we need to raise awareness on that it might not be. And then they had some really controlled practice with fill in the gap activities in completing the plan and focus on language, while then they were considered to be ready to write their own writing. um, so yes, exactly. So they were ready to write the writing, and they could brainstorm, but really it wasn't a brainstorming task because the ideas were already made for them. They just had to choose from ready-made ideas. Okay. So I asked you in the pre-webinar quiz how often you adjust coursebook material in writing, and I received a lot of feedback. It is normal that we are not able to adjust the material every day. For instance, yes, I saw lots of you said often, very often, but it's difficult to do that every day because it might be time consuming for us. So the fact is that I couldn't, as I guess you also, I couldn't adjust and adapt the material always, but I tried to. Okay, so let's take this in comparison to the sample course book lesson that I showed you. Let's say that I had to create a lesson to teach students how to write a film review. What would you do for a warm up? What would your warm up activity be? Just to get a few ideas? Brainstorming? Yes, why not? What else could we do? Discussion on films, I like that. Opinions. Look at a few existing reviews. Perfect. Ask them the last film they've seen. Perfect. Oh my God. Visuals, I like that. Super. Write a review. Examples. Perfect. A memory game. Why not? Complete the mind map. Perfect. Okay. So many answers keep coming. So what I did was simply to, as you said, I wanted to encourage them to participate in a discussion with their partner. So I asked them 3 simple questions about watching films, their favorite film, and about Netflix because it's very popular here in Greece. And then what I did was to play a little bit with multimodality when it comes to reading comprehension. And because, for instance, you can use the trailer of the film, you can, as you said, use visuals, show them the poster of the film. And then I had a film, but the thing is that it wasn't a ready made text already. They needed to put the paragraphs in the right order. Then they were given this bubble diagram, and they could fill in as many bubbles as they wanted to with features that they consider to be important for important to be included in a review. Then they had the chance to complete a plan on their own, not in an exercise, because the thing is that not every student needs to have the same exactly sentence when it comes to the planning steps. They can just create and have the same steps, but they can do it in their own words. The meaning is what matters. And finally, to make it a more real life and authentic task for them, I challenged a little bit my students, and I said that we are organizing a contest, and maybe you can get a few months for free on Netflix, and you need to write a great review, which can also be published in IMDb, which is very popular here also. So it was like quite encouraging for them to participate in that. The next step for me was to conduct a needs analysis. Well, the thing here is that I want you to tell me first, can you guess which needs analysis tool did I use in my case, in my story? Use film trailer for listening. That's very nice. A very good idea. Thank you. I will use it. Interviews. What else? Questionnaire. Observations, everything is different. Observation. Oh, observation. We've got a winner, maybe? Recordings, observation, questionnaire. I saw that most of you use the questionnaire. All right, so the right answer is questionnaires. So I decided to create a questionnaire, but why? Why did I decide to create a questionnaire instead of an interview, for instance? Why do you think? You can write in the chat box. Why could it be? Any ideas? It is more critical and creative. They can reflect. It is time saving. Yes, check. Check understanding. We know what they need. Exactly. The target is limited. Yes, exactly. It is less time consuming. This is the number one factor for me to improve their knowledge, to improve my knowledge also, I would say. All right. Great. Yes, give students time to think. Yes, perfect, perfect. So yes, yeah, exactly. So the main reason I used questionnaires was because it was time. It wasn't that time consuming, and I couldn't afford that because I know that as every teacher, we've got very busy schedules. So I've added a few steps, indicative steps. It's up to you if you want to use them that way or not. But I've also included the steps in the handout that you'll get after the webinar. So it's very important to remember to have very specific objectives. My objective was to focus on their writing skills, to improve them, and to make them succeed in exams, of course, because it was their goal. And then after you get consensus of your colleagues, your boss, it depends, and parents, it's very important that you pilot the questionnaire with somebody else so that you can make sure that students will understand this. Somebody else, I mean a colleague, another colleague probably is preferable. And finally, the last two boxes where I say inform students about changes and apply changes in teaching, well, you're going to see that I did this in collaboration with students. It wasn't a thing that I decided to do. It wasn't a change that I decided to do without giving any explanation to the students why. So they were really involved in the process. The questionnaire, okay, it consisted of these parts. So we've got a note to students. In this, we can say you just give them some advice, just to stay anonymous, to to make sure that they answer all questions, to be honest, things like that. And then background information, which is very important, learners' needs and wants, learner strategies, their lacks, their favorite topics, and the final thank you note. Now, having a look at the next slide, this one, what do you think this part is about? It's part of the questionnaire that I designed. What do you think it is? Is it background information? Is it needs and wants? Is it strategies? You can write it in the chat box. Background needs, background. Well, by background information, we need personal we need personal information about the students, right? Needs and wants, their preference, so needs and wants. Okay. All right. Okay. So if I say, do you enjoy writing? This is really what they need, what they want. If I say, how good do you think you are at writing? It's what they need or want. It's how they characterize themselves through writing. So basically, it's learners' needs and wants. And you can see that I have a variety of tasks for them. A Likert scale from 1 to 5, some checks, they can check the answer that best matches them. But this would be quantitative data. I also have qualitative data. You said some things with Claudia yesterday, if I remember. So in qualitative data, students get to produce their own answers. So which of these is your favorite one, and give reasons, or the least favorite one. What about this one? What is this one? What do you think? Background. Is it background? Background. Background information. I think that you all agree that it's background information. So yes, it is. It's very simple. You don't need to have so much information. Maybe age is the most important here. So let's move on to the next one, which is pretty obvious, I think. Is it lacks? Is it favorite topics? Interests? Personal interests? Hobbies. Favorite topics. Okay, so it's actually favorite topics. And this is very important because in this way, you can see, for instance, if the course book that you use matches students' favorite topics. They might be discouraged because of if the book includes their least favorite topics, for instance. So you might want to add something or maybe skip something which is not that relevant. It depends on you. It's very useful. What about this one? Is it lacks or strategies? Stefania says lacks. Okay, lacks, lacks, lacks. Yeah, okay, yes. Yes, it is lacks actually. And these are the famous can do statements, which you can find online. They are included in the CEFR booklet. And for the B1 level in writing, they are supposed to be able to do all of these things. It's useful, and I would recommend to include the don't know option because some students might be hesitant to answer no. So it's a better indirect way to point out that there lacks. What about this one? What do you think? Strategies. Nice. Yes. Yes. strategies are correlate with their preferences. Strategies, yes. It is very important also to know their strategies because, for instance, if I like teaching my students playing games and they like using the book, then you need to be in agreement with that. So it's very useful to do that. Now, after that, I collected and analyzed the data and I showed them, I created some infographics, and then I showed the results to the students. So fortunately, no student said that they didn't like writing at all. But they felt that they couldn't write adequately and in a satisfactory way letters, personal letters, and talk about films and the book. That's why I created also a review lesson. I adjusted the review lesson. Now, a few very important things about portfolio, which was my next step after I had introduced the needs analysis, then showed the results, was to search a little bit literature to see effectiveness of the portfolio. It's an ongoing assessment method. It focuses on process rather than the product, and it's an accumulation of students' work which gives students the chance to include in their folders preferences or something that they might have difficulty with. It is a ceaseless process. It is a chance to be given feedback, but not unilateral, just from the teacher. The double function of the portfolio is also very useful for us because the pedagogic aspect of it means that we make students feel autonomous, we involve them, they collaborate with each other, with the teacher, with themselves even. The use of meta language, which you'll be quite surprised with the fact that they can really understand it as long as it is written in simple words and explained in simple words. And the feature of reporting, which is great for teachers, you're covered up because we need proof of progress. We can show it to parents, to our school owners, or everywhere else. So for this, I spend another 45-minute 45-minute lesson to create and design the assessment grids, which were 3, with the students, based on the criteria that they already knew and were already explained before. So I'm going to start with the third point, peer assessment. For instance, I had learners write a writing, then they could exchange papers with another classmate, which was an extended real audience, and they had the chance to provide opportunity for revision by their comments. After that, students were given the writings back, and using the self-assessment grid, they could assess the holistic participation in the process. See the effort that they've put in this writing and tweak maybe a little bit some paragraphs, words, whatever needed. Lastly, I decided that the teacher assessment grid should have a final character. So this was mostly to guide students for the next product. I also use the European language portfolio. This is the most famous type of portfolio. So basically in the folder, we included the language passport, which was somehow the profile of the learner or the goals of the learner, just a short paragraph. The language biography, which was the questionnaire that they already had done, and the dossier. In the dossier, everything is collected, the writing papers, the assessment grids, and some extras, which I'm going to show you later. So I presented the results to students, focused on the 3 genres they had a little bit difficulty with for the first month, designed the portfolio pages with the students, and students had the chance to decorate their folders, write a nickname. If you want it, it is optional. And it was decided that the folders are to be kept at school. Some parts. This is a sample of a table of contents page. So for instance, I included the questionnaire, then I have an informal email, the date you can say, and the grades, okay? And 5 and 6 was a small surprise that I had prepared for students at the very end. Now, we could also design our own assessment grids together. First, let's think of content and let's think of B1 level. What would your criteria be when it comes to content for a B1 level? If you're willing, you can write in the chat box. Valentina says descriptions. Okay, answer the question asked in content. Cover all the questions? Exactly. Mechanics. Interaction with the topic, maybe, and what they've written. Okay. Achieving goals, yes. Relevancy with the topics, very nice. Excellent. Yes. Expand the topic so that the writer can understand and the reader. Yes, narratives, relevancy, excellent. So it doesn't have to be too many criteria, as you will see also. You don't need to involve too much. Some of these 4 criteria will include more, will have more expansion. What about language? What would you include in language? Grammar? Yes, grammar. Functions, vocabulary, lexical resource. Wow. Expression, yes. Pronunciation is good, but if you want to use a portfolio for speaking, vocabulary, right? Creativity in writing, yes. Sentence corrector, yes. Perfect. This is so nice. Yep. Excellent. All right. So basically, yes, this is what you have to do to focus on vocabulary, grammar. By grammar, what exactly do we mean? For instance, you can make it more specific so that students understand. Use simple forms, and you can find these if you have a look at the Cambridge criteria and the CFR level. Perfect. Okay. If language is appropriate for the genre also. About communicative achievement, which might not be that clear to students, what would you include? Style, reader. Yep. Perfect. Intelligibility, excellent. Appropriacy. Register, very nice. Paraphrasing, yeah, paraphrasing, using simpler language. Describing, narrating according to the topic. Very, very nice. Perfect. Very nice ideas. Clear ideas. Yes, exactly. So that the message is conveyed effectively. And what about organization? Organization. Oh, punctuation is also a very good, let's say, feature that students need to take into consideration, maybe in language, but also in communicative achievement. Discourse markers for organization, sure. Clear structure, yeah. Cohesion and coherence, however, we wouldn't write it that way at a B1 level, would we? Very nice. Yeah, maybe we could, at a B1 level, we could explain the arrangement a little bit. Yes, the main ideas, they are linking devices or We could explain a little bit what the topic sentence is in very simple terms. They understand it. If they are teenagers, appropriate use of conjunctions, very, very nice. Super. Perfect. Paragraph order, yes, which was also a task for them previously. Information hierarchy, introduction. If they've got introduction, and main body and conclusion. Perfect. Perfect. Very, very nice. So thank you very much for your comments and your participation. Basically, you've already created your assessment grids. This is a peer assessment grid. I think that it's the one that I've shared with you in the handout. So you will have access to it. So here, what can we write? The writer's name, the date, the assessor's name, and they should tick the genre, the correct genre, the one that they are writing. Then again, a Likert scale, 1, 3, 5. And as you can see here, we have a match. Our answers already match what we created with students, was relevant to the topic. Okay, they might not remember the word relevant, but they can write it just once when you do it once, and then they know it. Enough information, communicative achievement. Yes, if the writing is legible, it successfully communicates ideas, appropriate format. So in organization, my classmates' writing has introduction, main body, conclusion, what we said, topic, sentence, linking words, connect ideas and paragraphs, and use a variety of them, not only the same ones. And for them to give some advice to each other, I provided this box. And actually, this is what one of my students wrote. Use more linking words, write new words, not usual, which I think that you'll agree with me. That is a very straightforward comment. And in some cases, in most cases, as teachers, we avoid being that straightforward, and it might not be helpful for the students. I think this advice is valuable. And then what else? In the self-assessment grid, the thing that we did is to change the pronoun. So we used I, and the students actually proposed that we have a 7th point here, the last 17th point here, the last one. I proofread my final writing for any mistakes. So this is also very, very good. And in the teacher assessment grid, which was very similar to the original one, but it said my student, as you can imagine. You have my advice, which I think is very friendly towards our students. And this box is huge. It's not for us to use all of it. We can keep it the way that our students do. Now, one tip for you, if you have time, it is nice if you can have some teacher conferencing, which means if you could organize a 5 or 10-minute meeting with each of your students. If it's a smaller class, it's easier to realize that, of course, and you can organize something like that so that students ask you some of their questions. There might be something they don't understand. They might be confused with their folder, with the process of portfolio. There might be anything that they want to discuss with you, and you can do this in person. When we reached the end of the year, students were given a final reflection card, which was for summative purposes. As you can see, it's for summative purposes. You talked about that again with Claudia yesterday. So it's more like you get also the feedback about the process. This is again a sample of my students. You can see that they are a little bit hesitant with taking being given feedback from friends or from themselves, they might be a bit hesitant, but this is only at first, in the beginning. They have to practice in this. If they're not familiarized, it's logical to be like that. So this is for the boys, and this is for the girls. And this girl actually has commented, this program is very interesting and nice too. I want to keep on with this program. Which was very encouraging for next year's portfolio. And again, you can see, for instance, that she has put a 3 in, I should also assess my work, not only the teacher, because it's normal that they're not that familiarized with the process, but day by day they get better. This was a certificate after the reflection cards. They were given a certificate for their very hard effort. It was something that it was the least that I could give them, honestly. I think. So yes, could you explain more? Yes. Okay, the sentences that I used for the reflection cards were my own. What I wanted to find out. For instance, I wanted to find out if the portfolio made writing a fun task for them. I wanted to find out if they learned from revising their work. Things like that. It's up to you. Using very simple language, there's no problem. And you'll have the chance to read also the certificate if you see the recording. That's up to you. You can also make any adaptations you like. Another tip would be to have a final portfolio presentation, of course, because I think that students' work needs to be very dedicated to that, and you can see that the whole atmosphere of the class changes when it comes to writing lessons using the portfolio. You can invite your colleagues, they can invite their family, they can invite many people, so that they get cheered up and they get encouraged, apart from the fact that they might, of course, succeed in the exams. And you can also do that. And another tip, of course, would be to, because we live in a digital era, you can, of course, have your portfolio, have an e-portfolio created online, which is really eco-friendly. I totally recommend that. Because the first time I did it, I didn't have any portfolio, and you need lots of paper to do it. So I recommend having e-portfolios. And last but not least, I have 4 little clouds so that you take them with you and consider them when you start your journey with portfolios. Number 1 is validity. What do we mean by validity? The thing is that a portfolio makes the writing process much more authentic, because a writer, also when we're talking even about an author, the focus is on the process, not the final product. So we need to pass this idea on to our students and make sure that it is more authentic, lifelike, transform them into authors. However, keep in mind that there might be issues of validity if you assign writing as homework. Because okay, there might be issues of plagiarism. It depends on the level, of course, but they might copy from the book, and this is not this. Let's say, detracts a little bit from the authentic process. Another cloud would be reliability. Reliability. Why? What do we mean by that? there might be, for instance, some discrepancies when it comes to the grades. What I noticed the very first time that I used the portfolio was that my grades were much higher than what students gave to themselves or to other students. This is normal because, again, as I said, it needs training. Their cognitive skills and decision making skills and all of that are not developed to the maximum yet. So it's normal. You need to be aware of that. Another thing might be the issue of practicality. Because, for instance, I had to make some average to sum up their all of their grades, which was time consuming for me. If you're good at using computers and Excel program, it won't be that time consuming. But again, there might be a few issues with their folder, their order, things like that. But this is only for the beginning. By the time they're familiarized with the process, there isn't any problem. And last but not least, to finish in a very positive note about the portfolio, um, it has a washback effect and a wash forward effect. What do these mean? A washback effect means that students are given the chance to reflect on their own writings. Maybe they want to revise what they've written. You can also share the portfolios, the folders with them once a month or every 2 weeks. It depends on your time. So that they can reflect a little bit more when they've got an adequate amount of material. And another one is the wash forward effect. And the thing is that here it's not only the fact that they succeed in exams, it's also the fact that they cultivate their critical thinking, their cognitive skills, their creativity. They become the authors and the owners of this work, of the work that they produce. So thank you very much. I hope we were on time.
Yeah, excellent. Well done. That was amazing. And
Thank you.
You managed to get all those slides in 43 minutes. Fantastic.
Perfect.
That was really interesting, Vasiliki. Thank you so much for that. That was it was very thought-provoking and inspiring. And personally, I like the way that you explained what you did and also explained why you did those things. So that was great. We've had loads and loads of comments.
Thank you.
Lots of questions coming in as well, and I've been checking out what's been happening on Facebook too. Loads and loads of comments there. So let's. Are you okay to take some questions now?
Yes, sure.
Do you need to drink of water or something? You must be tired after.
No, I'm fine. I'll drink all the water of the world later.
Okay. So I'm going to move on to some of the questions from the Q&A section. There are a couple of things on class size. Mm-hmm. So do you think you talked about this was with a class of teenagers, I think, in quite a small class.
Yes.
Do you think you could adapt this for a bigger class, and how would you do that?
Well, out of my experience, it is quite manageable up to 10 people. If you are in a public school, no, in a private school, usually this is the number that we've got here in Greece. More than 10 people, you need to be experienced. You need to have really to make a plan. If you plan everything, then you will be fine. But you need to keep in mind that it will be lots of work for you also. It doesn't mean because you don't immediately take their notes and their grade and give them their grades that you're not that involved in the process.
Okay, great. There's we've got lots and lots of questions coming in actually, but we've got at least 3 questions that are asking about AI, which I guess is kind of logical as we're talking about writing. So there's one from Khalid who says, would you recommend the use of ChatGPT to your B1 students as a tool to create sample writings? Aliona's asking about how do you take AI into consideration? And Ulita's also mentions AI. How do you deal with that in class? Is it something that you've had to deal with so far?
No, to be honest, we're not that immersed in that yet here, but it's not a bad idea. I mean, there are many resources we can look up also in some students corpora. There are many, and we can maybe focus on that if we want to give them a more authentic sample for their writing, because this is authentic speech. Maybe we can use some corpora.
Okay, great. So you talked at one point, you talked about e-portfolios as an alternative to using lots of paper. And Aliona's asked, what e-portfolios do you recommend?
Well, it's up to you. You can really have everything on your computer and just explain to students the way they can send them, fill them in, and send them back. And it depends on you. I recommend that you are the one that keeps on your computer each student's portfolio. I think that there is an app, VoiceThread. I don't know if you know it, but this app gives you the opportunity to record the writing, to upload an image on that, to tape, students can tape them on video, reading their writings, and there is also interaction with students. It's nice. If you can check it out.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Let's move on to this question about peer assessment strategy. Okay, and there's a couple of questions about talking about peer assessment. So this one is, while we're practicing peer assessment in writing, sometimes some students are reluctant to give honest scores to their friends. And this is something that came up in yesterday's webinar as well, isn't it? So sometimes they just give full marks or just say, yes, nice. So without reading it carefully. So how can we as teachers deal with this kind of situation?
Well, yes, at the beginning it might be like that, but as you can see, I also had a slide with a comment of my student who was very straightforward. So it depends on their personality. So the thing is that you have to break this ice. If you break the ice there in that process, students can express themselves. And apart from nice, they might start writing, expanding their answers.
Okay, great, thank you. Right, I'm just having a look through the questions. Okay, there's a question from Alessandra who says, how can we work on self-esteem with learners who are uncomfortable with writing? And I guess that relates to your, I love that photo that you showed at the beginning of the two different people, one person screaming and another person happy about writing. So yeah, learners and self-esteem and writing, how do you deal with that, or any advice for that?
Well, of course, we cannot force a student that might be dealing with real issues when it comes to that, but the portfolio has exactly this function to provide this autonomy, to make students feel free. And if they find it difficult to feel free at first, it's a great opportunity for them to, let's say, be given a voice that is not theirs. In the self-reflection part, we encourage them to critically think of the effort put in this piece of writing. So it might not be, it has the reverse function, actually.
Okay, great. I mean, some people, I think sometimes my students say that they're happier writing than they are speaking. They feel more comfortable because it's something that they can think about.
Yeah. With speaking, I think they might be struggling more. Or you can even give them again advice if you have the time to organize the meeting sessions that I mentioned. This is also good because it's only you and the student. So the student there will open up and mention any difficulties.
Okay, fantastic. You mentioned wash back and wash forward, and I have to admit that's the first time I've heard of wash forward. And one of our questions is, could you give more details about wash back and wash forward, or just maybe elaborate a little bit on what you said about that?
Yes, so the thing is that with washback effect means that students have the opportunity to go back and reflect on their writing, because it is a whole folder. Imagine from the very beginning of the year to the last one, let's say. Or they might have the chance to focus only on their difficulties. They might also have separate sections in their portfolio, some difficulties, some preferences. So it's good because we don't always go back to look at it. But if they've put so much effort and they've collaborated with their partners, it makes it purposeful. Otherwise, they won't go back and revise their writings unless they're really willing to. For the wash forward effect, this means that it helps them in the future also, because they create critical thinking skills, they become autonomous, they know how to manage their own text, they know that what they are expected by the examiners to write and how. Things are much clearer for them.
Okay, thank you. We had a question from Aswini asking if you could elaborate on dossier. Could you explain a little bit more what that is and how you incorporate that into your portfolio?
Yes, for instance, you've got the students writing, then you've got the 3 grids, the assessment grids, and basically that's it. And you've got the writing page with the grids, another writing page with the grids. You can categorize this according to the genre, or you can discuss it with each student personally, or you can discuss it with the whole class and agree on one. It depends on you. But this is what is included in the dossier. You don't have to include anything else. Then it will be maybe a reflection card if you want to, and a certificate.
Okay, fantastic. And we talked about how you could adapt this kind of process for bigger classes. What about for different age groups? Would you use it with younger learners and maybe with adults as well? And what would you need to change, if anything?
Yeah, sure. Well, for younger learners, it might be more difficult to implement the portfolio because they might not even understand simple language, and then to expose them to meta language might be a bit chaotic for them. But again, it's not that it's out of the question. If you're really willing to try, of course, it can be done. It can be realized. With adults, for sure, you can use it. I also use it, and you can. It's much easier, especially if they are also at a greater level, higher level. Then you just have to adjust a little bit the CFR criteria. What are they supposed to do to be able to do at B2 or C1 or C2? And if their goal is also to achieve in exams, you can also include some of these points, which both the CFR and the criteria of exams usually are similar. So it doesn't mean that you have to use so many. Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Right, I'm going to go for one more question.
Sure.
Oh, sorry, I just had Facebook on there for a second. Then I was just looking through Facebook questions. Okay, academic contexts. A question from Alessandra asking, what about academic contexts? Would it be manageable to use portfolios in that context too?
Okay, so by academic context, do we mean universities only? Universities, colleges?
I guess that would be one example, yeah.
Okay, so if we mean that, it's preferable. It has lots of advantages and disadvantages. You have to balance them out because, for instance, we're talking about more mature people, so they know how to do the process. Normally, they won't be that lost in it. But on the other hand, I can tell that the number of students might be much larger. So if you think that this particular class is responsible enough to deal with it, it's a very interesting tool. You can also use it with ESP courses, EOP courses. For instance, I had an EOP very recently, an EOP case, and instead of a questionnaire, I conducted an interview. And then the idea of the portfolio was much clearer, and she was even a beginner. So it doesn't mean that it cannot be done.
Okay, so somebody with a much lower level than B1.
Yes.
Yeah.
But because she was more mature, she was an adult working and she needed English for her work, she could understand what some words that might be difficult, cognitively difficult for younger students mean.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm just conscious of time and we're just kind of running out of time now. So Vasiliki, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all your ideas with us. And thank you to everyone for all your comments, for your questions. Also, thank you to Paul and Melissa, who've been dealing with the comments here, and to Marcus and the social media team who've been on our Teaching English Facebook page. We've got 2 more sessions coming up this week on Thursday and Friday, and you can find out more about those if you have a look on our Teaching English website page. Yeah, so thank you very much. It's been fascinating.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any final comment from you, Vasiliki, before we go?
No, I really loved it. Looking forward to tomorrow's session.
Me too. Okay, thanks very much, everyone, and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.